Hello and welcome to the first edition of Focus for 2017. Focus is a program produced by the Department of Disaster Management, DDM. I am your host, Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the DDM. During the first 2 weeks of January, the territory experienced rough and hazardous sea conditions, resulting in the closure of beaches and warnings being issued for boaters. The weather conditions experienced in the Virgin Islands was due to a frontal trough from the west, which not only increased instability in the atmosphere, but also caused sea conditions to become hazardous, with forecasters predicting waves of up to 12 feet in some instances. During this time, a number of beaches were red flagged, and terminologies such as rip current and high surf were commonly used during beach discussions. In light of these recent developments, it is important that we reinforce our beach safety messages. In this edition of Focus, we'll talk to some key persons who monitor these systems regularly to ensure the safety and security of our residents and our visitors. Stay tuned for more information coming up after this message.
Do you go swimming? How about fishing? Do you catch the ferry? But do you really know what to do to be safe at the sea? Here's a few tips. Life jackets. Take them, wear them. Small boats, especially ones under 6 meters in length, can and may sink very quickly. Wearing a life jacket increases your survival time in the water. Check the local weather marine forecast before you go and expect both weather and sea state changes. Never go out to fish or dive without double checking. Always bring a waterproof communication device, including a waterproof mobile phone or a waterproof case for your phone. Avoid alcohol. Safe boating and alcohol do not mix. Remember, someone needs to stay alert and aware. Similar to cars, you need a designated driver on the boat at all times.
Brought to you by the Public Information and Education Subcommittee of the National Disaster Management Council and this station.
Welcome back to Focus. Before the break, I spoke briefly about the rough sea conditions, which the territory recently experienced, resulting in beaches being red flagged across the territory. Let's now turn to the head of lifeguards in the Conservation and Fisheries Department of the Ministry of Natural Resources, Mark Street, and David Donovan, who is also a lifeguard in the ministry, to hear what they have to say about the beach safety flag system and its importance to ensuring beach safety. One of the first things I noticed entering the beach is, of course, the beach flag and the signs. Are these signs posted on all the beaches throughout the territory?
Most of the North Shore beaches have beach safety signs. We actually have more signs to put out at the moment on Anegada, and there's some more signs to go at Jos van Dijk and the Baths at Virgin Gorda. Those particular signs were purchased by the Tourist Board.
Is there a particular reason why some of the beaches have signs and flags and some don't?
Well, mostly the signs and flags are on the North Shore, where we get north swells or ground swells in the winter season. So like really from end of October around to the beginning of May. And the beaches that have swell or north waves on them are more dangerous because you get conditions like rip currents, large waves, big surf, shore break, heavy shore break. So conditions that are actually dangerous. So these beaches also get more beach population, more people visit those beaches. And I think there are actually more beaches on the north side anyhow, naturally. But we run a flag warning system on the North Shore of Tortola and work with the Baths, the National Park Trust staff, running a flag warning system every day throughout the year, but we actually post emails every day during the season, so from November through to May.
And when did this process begin in terms of the posting of the beach flags?
Well, the process for those particular signs began a whole year ago this time last year, September last year. But beach safety signs, the latest version of signs was started by the Tourist Board at the end of 2005, beginning of 2006. And then before that, the original beach safety signs were posted around the end of 1997, I think.
And do you find that beachgoers are adhering to the signs?
That's a good question. I think it's a bit like the signs on the road, so like speed limit sign or whatever, or no overtaking sign. Some people pay attention to them, and a lot of people don't. So it's fairly similar, really. Yeah, some people read the sign and take notice of it. Some people don't even look at it. Some read it and still don't take any notice.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so David, let me bring you in here. In terms of the flags and what they mean, can you go through that quickly for us in terms of the different colors?
Okay, the red flag means danger. No one is allowed in the water. So if you see that flag, do not go into the water. The yellow flag is caution. Only strong swimmers are allowed in the water because of the strong currents and stuff like that. We also have a red and yellow flag. That indicates if we have two of them, you have to swim in between the two flags then. The purple flag is wild marine life, jellyfish and sharks. Also we have the checkered flag. You normally see we have them up on Fisherman's Day. That's only for, no swimming is allowed there, only watercraft and boats.
All right, thanks for that. If someone is in distress at the beach, what would be your advice to them in terms of how to cope and handle that situation?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, ideally they should put their hand up and wave and shout for help, and hopefully attract the attention of somebody on the beach. Hopefully there would be a lifeguard on the beach if they follow our advice and swim at a beach with a lifeguard. So hopefully a lifeguard would go and rescue them, or help them at least. But if somebody's in distress, then they're probably not going to be thinking straight. So the most important thing is not to panic, but it's easier to say don't panic than to actually apply it in real life. If someone panics, then that's a problem, because from a drowning perspective, you have distress, and then panic, and then submersion being basically drowning. Yeah. And that process can take a few minutes, or it can take literally seconds. Yeah.
You know, a lot of us often hear that when in distress while at sea, it's best to try and float. Is that something that you would advise people to do?
Oh yeah, certainly, yeah. If you can stay afloat, then you're not going to drown. So, but if you're panicking, that's, again, easier said than done. But yeah, it's stay afloat, raise one arm and wave and try and attract attention and shout and try and get someone to help you.
And in terms of the beachgoers, you know, sometimes people feel compelled to go out and help someone if they see them in distress. Is there any advice for people who are helping others in terms of how they should approach someone who is actually drowning?
On each of the beach safety sign, there's a life ring. What a person could do is run to get the life ring and fling it as fast to the person out there. The current is gonna carry it out to them, and then they could use the rope and assist by pulling them in.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's the life ring in the background here.
One of the ones here at Josiah's Bay. Yeah. We don't really recommend, unless you're trained to rescue people in the ocean, to actually go in the water. So the idea is to try and stay dry and rescue from the land if possible. It's very hazardous, and the likelihood is if you go into rescue and you're not trained, or you don't have the right equipment, that you might get into difficulty yourself, and then you end up with more than one casualty. And historically that's happened a lot, not necessarily so much here, but around the world many people have dived into the water to rescue other people. Sometimes not just people, even animals like dogs, and they themselves have drowned. So the rescuer drowns, and that's not an unusual thing to happen.
We just heard from Head of Lifeguards Mark Street and Lifeguard David Donovan of the Conservation and Fisheries Department within the Ministry of Natural Resources. During that interview, the term rip current was mentioned several times. Looking back on what took place during the early part of January, we will recall that rip current warnings were issued on several occasions. You may be wondering, what exactly is a rip current and how to identify them? The following video from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, provides answers to those questions. Let's watch.
You might have heard them referred to as undertow or riptides, but these ocean phenomena are actually rip currents. Rip currents are narrow currents in the surf zone that move quickly away from shore. A typical rip current ranges from 50 to 100 feet wide and can extend 100 yards or more offshore. It can reach speeds of over 5 miles per hour. That's faster than an Olympic swimmer. That makes them dangerous and potentially deadly, and scientists want to learn more about them so we can better forecast when and where they will form and keep beachgoers safe. Here's what we know. Waves don't have to be huge for a rip current to form. 2 or 3 feet are all it takes. And the weather doesn't have to be bad for a rip current to emerge. They often occur in the nice days after a storm. They're usually strongest near low tide, but can form at any time. Rip currents often form where sandbars are near the shore. They occur at breaks or channels in the bar. They're often difficult to see, but you can spot them in areas where waves aren't breaking, or where there's foam, seaweed, or discolored water being pulled offshore. It's easier to see a rip current from higher up, such as from the beach access over dunes or a lifeguard's tower. Rip currents are a hazard for beachgoers, but by knowing the dangers and what to look for, you can avoid being caught in the grip of the rip.
Now that you have a better understanding of what a rip current is, it is important to understand how to stay safe if you find yourself in a rip current. The following video provides some additional facts about a rip current, especially for children, and also gives information on how to respond if caught in one.
We all love the beach in the summer, the sun, the sand, and the surf. But just because we're having fun doesn't mean we can forget about safety. Rip currents account for 80% of beach rescues and can be dangerous or deadly if you don't know what to do. It's simple stuff, but we can't take it for granted. Know before you go. Check local beach forecasts before you head to the beach, and always swim near lifeguards. Look for any warning signs or flags. If you're unsure about conditions, ask a lifeguard. And know how to swim before you venture in. If you do happen to be caught in a rip current, stay calm. It won't pull you under. It'll just pull you away from shore. If you try to fight the rip current and swim against it, you'll just get worn out. Instead, float. If you're a good swimmer, swim parallel to shore until you've cleared the pool of the rip current. Swim with the waves, allowing them to push you to shore. If you can, wave and yell to get the attention of lifeguards and people on shore to let them know you need help. If you're on shore and see someone in trouble in a rip current, do not go in after them. Instead, call for help. If a lifeguard is not available, throw in something that floats. But don't try to be a hero and make the rescue yourself. Even trained lifeguards only attempt a rescue using a flotation device. Rip currents can be dangerous, but if you know your options, survey your situation, and stay calm, you can stay safe and continue to have fun in the surf, sand, and sun.
Stay tuned to Focus for more information after these messages.
Look out for these beach safety flags and signs. The red flag means danger, no swimming. The yellow flag means caution, weak swimmers should stay on shore. The purple flag means harmful marine life warning. Red and yellow flags mark areas patrolled by lifeguards. Swim between them.
Never swim, surf, scuba dive, or go snorkeling after a heavy meal and drinking alcohol. Be particularly cautious if you have a serious health condition. Never swim, surf, scuba dive, or go snorkeling alone. Always pay attention to lifeguards, beach safety signs, and flags.
Swim near a lifeguard.
Welcome back to Focus. Beach safety is the focus for this edition. In addition to practicing safety at the beach, general sea safety is also encouraged, whether you are going for a swim or sailing. In this next interview, Sergeant Louis Buckley of the Marine Unit of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force provides some advice to keep you safe at sea.
When you're going out to sea, it's best to inform someone where you're going and the approximate time for your return. Also, it's always best to travel with good communication, whether it be satellite phone, cell phones. Always have a radio on board so you can call for help. Travel with the necessary safety kit, life jackets, flares, so that you can signal for help. And always travel with a companion. It's always best to have someone else on board. And also, very importantly, I wanted to touch on the fact that we should all try to avoid operating vessels while intoxicated or while taking medication that may hamper your ability to navigate vessels safely.
So the next time you head to the beach and see the flags flying, we hope that you will have a greater appreciation for their use in saving lives. We live in a beautiful part of the world with many beaches and cool breezes, but sometimes those winds can create very dangerous sea conditions that interrupt our recreational activities. It is important that as we enjoy the beauty of our island, we pay attention to the dangers that sometimes come with changing weather. As we close off this edition of Focus, here are some quick beach safety tips to always remember. Never go to the beach alone, even if you are a strong swimmer. Always keep an eye on children and the elderly while they're in the water. Pay attention to beach safety signs at all times. Look out for rip currents and avoid them if possible. If you get caught in a current, swim parallel to the shore until the water stops pulling you. If you get tired of swimming, take a break. Always face the waves so you know what's coming your way. Do not swim or operate a vessel under the influence of drugs, medication, or alcohol. Ensure that you have a working communication device, floaters, and life jackets on your boats, and have weak swimmers and children wear life jackets at all times. Check the weather forecast before heading to the beach and before you go sailing. And of course, follow the instructions given by the Department of Disaster Management at all times. Remember, it's better to prepare and prevent rather than repair and repent. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Focus. I am Fiona Alexander-Smith, Information and Education Manager at the Department of Disaster Management. Join me next time for another edition on CBN Television.